Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the Internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to the Retro Zoo Super Show. Really thrilled to have you joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this episode. For those who joined us a few episodes ago when we had Dan Gielach, Professor of Music at U of H on, we had a couple of episodes where we were discussing kind of in depth some music from Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and we just had a blast doing that, and that's actually been one of the goals of this podcast, is to delve much more deeply into the music of video games, of the retro video games. These games, they had a tremendous level of talent with some of those composers that were really doing some interesting and innovative things, and a lot of times that kind of got overshadowed by the sound systems themselves that were not quite up to the task of conveying that sort of level of music. Now, for a lot of us, we actually really like that style of music, the tones and the sounds of the old game systems. But I know for the mass public that's a barrier for them. And so one of the goals of the show is to really explore what makes this music good. And that's going to be actually the topic today. But before I get way far ahead of myself, well, yeah, I know, too late. Let me introduce everybody. I am one of your hosts, Kai. And we are joined, as always, by my good buddy, Steven. Steven, how's it going today?
Going well, dude.
Bob, John, what are you doing in Steven's chair?
This is Steven.
No, your drum.
No, what I mean is, this is me, Steven, speaking right now through Drum's body.
Okay, that's just getting weird that apparently my co-host has possessed our robot drummer drum.
Nah, man, I am transmitting my voice from a remote location so that I do not physically have to be in the studio.
Wait, you're working from home?
No, I am on assignment.
Wait, you're on assignment? That didn't even make any sense. There's no assignment. I mean, I'm the one that makes most of the assignments, and I don't see an assignment.
Kai, he is at the store.
Who's at the store?
Steven.
I thought you were Steven.
No, this is Drum.
Okay. This is getting confusing. Your drum
Yes. No, this is Steven.
Okay, can only one of you speak at a time? Drum, what's going on?
Steven is broadcasting through me, but I am also able to speak.
Okay, and of course you only have one voice, and so everything's coming through like that. So, Steven, where are you?
No, this is mine. I got it first.
Drum, what's going on?
Steven is at the store trying to get Black Friday deals.
Oh, okay, yeah, this makes a lot more sense. He, to be fair, Steven did think that we should take this week off because it's Thanksgiving, and, he doesn't, neither one of us do anything. I mean, okay, none of us do anything for Thanksgiving. I mean, obviously Drum doesn't. He's a robot. He doesn't have a family. The rest of us, I mean, we're in Hyrule. This is where I'm from, but, I don't really, I mean, I go visit the chapel because I know some people there, but I don't have a family here, and everybody else in the band, Anlan, Lady Morel, and Steven, they're all from different worlds in the Retroverse. And so, we don't normally do anything for Thanksgiving except hang around here. And so I thought, well, we might as well do an episode because we're not doing anything. And Steven wasn't overly happy about that. He wanted the week off, because there were some things that were going on sale that he wanted to snag. And, it seems to be that's what's going on.
Lady, I told you I had this first. Get away from it. Get away.
Drum, is he going to just, I mean, are you just going to broadcast everything he says?
Yes, that is the way he programmed me.
Okay. Steven, obviously I can't, we're live. I really can't do anything about this, but could you try to hold it down?
Look it, bud. I didn't push your wife. She fell while we were...
Okay, that's all right. I'm gonna mute you. I'm muting you. And we will do this by myself. Okay, so you've already met Drum. That's our producer. Other members of the band, Anlan, Lady Morel, they are providing the music for us today. And, I'm really looking forward to this episode. So what we are going to do is to look really in depth into a particular piece of music, a single piece, not a whole soundtrack like we did last time. And it's a very simple piece. And for those of you who have been gaming long, and especially you JRPG fans out there, you are definitely going to recognize this piece as it's appeared in a great number of games now. So this is one of those things that's really close to my heart, because Nobuo Uematsu is really the composer that got me into game music in the first place. And I'd been playing games. I had even been playing games whose soundtrack I absolutely love, like Mega Man and that sort of thing. But it was particularly parts of Final Fantasy IV and that were really starting to grab me. And then in Final Fantasy VI, when we got to the opera scene, that's what really kind of pushed over the edge to me. And so I bought my first standalone video game soundtrack. And for those who were playing games at that time, you might remember, I don't think it was necessarily the first video game soundtrack that was released in America. Obviously, these things, well, I say obviously, you might not know this, but in Japan, they were much more popular. But it was the first one that a lot of us knew about, and that's because the game came with this order form with a lot of cool stuff for the game, and I kept all my inserts, and so I put it aside. I wasn't intending to buy anything, but after that opera scene, and I kept playing the game, and it just kept sticking with me, because the opera scene like forces you to stop and listen to the music, and it's really a bold move for a game of the day. But an Uematsu soundtrack does not disappoint. The aria in the opera is just incredible, and I have numerous recordings of that. But at the time, I finally looked at it, and it's like this soundtrack is so good, and so I bought it. I ordered it, and I played those discs out. I let a guy borrow it in the year 2000, and I remember it's the year 2000 because he kept putting off returning things to me, and then after 9/11, he joined the Marines, and I haven't run across him again, and so a couple of years after that, I finally gave in and rebought the soundtrack, and I haven't regretted that for a second. It's the whole soundtrack's just incredible, and I've since just bought a lot of Uematsu stuff, and he's just an amazing composer. So we're going to set this up like our other music episodes. We're going to set this up a little bit differently. We are going to go into a song right now. What we're going to talk about is the Prelude, the crystal theme from Final Fantasy, and this piece is very simple. It gets more complex as years go on, and it is one of a few themes that Uematsu wrote for the original Final Fantasy games that have popped up in pretty much every game ever since. And the crystal theme was special because it basically, what happened was Uematsu thought that he was done with the soundtrack. He had written everything, he had composed everything, and his boss walks in the room, and I'm gonna make up the dialogue, but this is basically what happened. His boss is like, hey, this soundtrack's really great, and Uematsu says, well, thank you, or something like that. And the boss is like, well, I particularly like this piece and this piece. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. I like those as well. I think this is going to be really effective for this game, and it's really strengthening the game. Well, thank you, sir. It means a lot to me that you would say this. Oh, we need one more piece, and we need it in 30 minutes. Thanks. So, he was basically given 30 minutes to do this song because they needed a track for the title screen. And for those kind of in the know for these old games, is that the composers, a lot of the times in the NES years, not only wrote the music, but also programmed the sounds of the game. And so, he was tasked with basically writing this tune and programming it in 30 seconds. Oh, that would be horrible. 30 minutes. What he basically did was to just write this very, very simple chord progression, and had the piece simply be just arpeggios of these chords. So I am going to walk through these terms as we go, and try to make sense of them for people who are who have not studied music, and hopefully bring some clarity as to what's actually going on here. But before we do that, let's listen to the song. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with the Final Fantasy I version of the song. We're going to talk about its structure, and then jump over to Final Fantasy IV, where we have more of a which is where Uematsu added a lot more stuff to fill it in to make it more of a complete song instead of just a series of arpeggios. So just very quickly, arpeggios are kind of when you're just playing a chord, and I do have my keyboard hooked up here, kind of when you're just playing a chord, but instead of playing the chord, you break it up to go up and down the chord instead of just playing it all at once. Okay, and so you're going to hear this throughout, because that's pretty much what this tune is. And so we're going to start off with the one of the original NES versions, and then we're going to jump forward. So buckle in. We're going to take a listen. Drum, can you bring that up?
Please don't kick me out. I wanted to spend my...
Okay, I'll do it, thanks. Okay, so that is from Final Fantasy 1. That is the original title screen, and that's a piece that we're going to keep coming back to pretty much with every Final Fantasy along the way. And so it's a tune that's very familiar with the JRPG players, even people who have casually played the Final Fantasy games. It's there in 7, which, is kind of the big breakout one for them. And so this is one that's been very familiar. So first thing you're going to notice is that there's a lot of pattern going on here. Like I said, what this is just a series of chords, and what we're doing with each one is doing a very similar arpeggio with every one that pops up. And the structure of it actually begins relatively simply and kind of what we would expect. So I'm not going to play the arpeggios, but I'm going to play the chords. We're going to start off with our root chord. Now the root is whatever key we're in. So if we're in the key of C, the root is C. And there's our C. And if you have taken, any sort of singing course in junior high school or anything like that, you probably know the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So when we get back to do, we're actually the same root as we started with, just one octave higher. In this case, we're playing in the key of C. Okay. Now, the chord of C and the chord of A minor are the same except for that root note. All right, so let me pause right there real quick and explain what I mean by that. So the key of C major and the key of A minor actually share all of the exact same notes. The difference is, where's our starting point? Where is our root? Okay. And so if we start with C, which we're doing in this song, then we're in the key of C major. If we're starting with A, then we're in the key of A minor, but all of the notes are the same. And so these two, that's why you see a minor sixth very often in various songs. And so, the root here is C, the minor sixth is A minor. And these are the two keys that share all the same notes. And if you're in any other key, any other major key, it's going to share all the same notes as its minor 6. So if you're in the key of G, it's going to share all the notes with E minor, etc. We don't need to know all that for our purposes right now, but it's important to know that they share all of the same notes, because that is why the first 2 chords of the song sound very nice together. And they just kind of go back and forth a couple times. Now you're going to notice something as we go back and forth between these two. It's kind of relaxing, you know? It's kind of chill. There's this concept in music of tension. And when we have a root chord, this is C. We have a minor 6th, which is A minor, what we've been talking about. They share so much, you know, besides that one note change, that there's not really any tension in here. This is not something where we're just dying to get back somewhere. And that's what tension is in music. It's that feeling that, you know, the place that we're in right at this moment is not a comfortable place for us to stop at, and we need to get somewhere else. And so we can look at it very much like, you know, tension and anywhere else where this word is used. You know, it's a place that kind of, it's unsettling, you know, it kind of sits on you, and it's not some place that you want to stay. You want to get it, another musical term, resolved. And we're using that musical term just like we would use it in everyday life. When we have tension, we want it to be resolved. So when we go root to minor 6, back and forth, especially using, you know, just these simple arpeggios, there's nothing in the music that is forcing us to be that kind of uncomfortable or anything like that. It's a very relaxing sound. And so when Uematsu does this twice, we're very settled here. We're very good here. But then is where he starts mounting the tension up. And the way he mounts it up is actually the whole reason I wanted to do this stupid song, was because I thought it was pretty darn interesting. All right, so here we go. We start with the 4th. In this case, it's the F. Now, there's a little bit of tension here. We've deviated from our root a bit more. And so when we're doing root, minor 6, root, minor 6, then we have our 4th, our F. This is not something where we want to stay, you know? We want to get back to our root, you know? And so we're here, and this is introducing the first, that first kind of level of tension, but it really ramps up when we get to the 5th. Now the 5th chord, and this is a G. This actually does a couple of things that is causing us to not want to stay here. So this is where we want to go. We've already kind of intuitively know that this is the key the song is in. This is our C. This is our root. This is our do. But when we're playing the G chord, we are playing 2 notes right around that root there. And we want to be here. And we're playing. And so that has a lot of tension in it. We can't stop here. So let me play through. We'll go a little bit faster so we can kind of get to where the point is. Darn it. I messed it up. All right. And I'm sitting here for a reason. Because right now you're listening to it saying, go back to here, go back to here. That is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about the tension, and we want it resolved. The resolution is going to go back to C. And so if Uematsu just did that, then that is, the most widely used chord set in pop music history. Root, minor sixth, fourth, and fifth. And that pops up in pretty much every song on the radio today. And that's kind of what we would expect, especially with a guy who has 30 minutes to write a song. What I find really interesting is that that's not what he does at all. And instead, he goes to the flat sixth, which is A flat. And then he does a flat seventh. So why is this interesting? Because, all right, this is the chord, and this is our scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You'll notice that almost all the notes I'm playing here are not in that key. It's the same with and so he's now taking notes and chords that are not part of the C major key that we're playing in. He's actually departed from that key almost completely. And this is why I think this is interesting, because he's actually shifted the key. This is a parallel key shift into C minor. Now C minor, this is C. C minor is this. Okay. It's actually the same, it has the same root, has the same do. We're not going to do a strict do, re, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol. Instead it's okay, so it's a completely different key, but you'll notice this key has both A flat and B flat in it. So he's gone from C, built up tension here, built up tension even more. We're wanting a resolution right here. We're trying to, get back to C, but instead he shifts keys into C minor to play, to build it up even more, to ramp it up even more, back to the resolution. And I think this is super interesting because this is a game that if you've played it, takes a couple of left turns and like all good fantasy RPGs, and this is actually a fantasy RPG with sci-fi elements in it, like, spaceships and time travel. This is, one of the aspects of fantasy RPG is that it's somewhat familiar and somewhat mystical and foreign to us. And so like right from the beginning, Uematsu is playing with us a little bit, giving us something familiar, something nice, something relaxing, adding in tension that we're expecting. The fourth and the fifth is stuff that happens all the time in pop music. Fifth, and then taking us for a left turn that is first of all unexpected, but it's also adding that sort of mysterious quality to it that we're kind of, that we would want to find in a fantasy role-playing game. That it's not all familiar and it's not all easy and just all the same. But it actually is taking us into a world we're not expecting and has some surprises in it. Steven, do you have anything that you want to add?
You're a heartbreaker, dream maker, a love taker. Don't you mess around with me. You're a...
Steven, John, what's going on?
He's singing along with the radio.
Why am I not surprised? Okay, all right. Anyways, we're about up to our break. So that, in a nutshell, is what is going on with the chord progression of this song. So it's a very, very, very simple song that is just basically climbing arpeggios to a very simple chord progression. But what I wanted to convey here was that Uematsu's doing something that's a little bit more complicated than what we would really expect him to do in a song, in a tune that's this seemingly simple, deceptively simple, that he's throwing together in 30 minutes. But what he is doing is also reflecting something on the nature of the game that you are about to play and setting you up, setting your expectations, as such that what's going to happen next is going to make sense. And for those of you who have played Final Fantasy before, it really is, even in the fantasy RPG series, because genre, all these JRPGs are coming out of what we call Dragon Warrior back in the day, but was called Dragon Quest. And Dragon Quest is a very, very straightforward, fantasy trope that, the bad guy is trying to take over the world, has kidnapped the princess, go save the princess, save the world. And that's what is going on here. And there was a lot of Dragon Quest clones being made in Japan. Final Fantasy was in a lot of ways a Dragon Quest clone, but it was also something that really tried to play with your expectations. And so it starts off with this bad guy who's taken the princess and is trying to take over the world. And you go save the princess and you defeat the bad guy, and then you get the opening credits. And I mean, what it's trying to tell the audience is, okay, we know you got here because you like Dragon Quest, but we're going to take you a little bit farther than that. And so what you start playing with is, all the fantasy RPG stuff that you are expecting, but then it starts taking left turns on you and starts introducing, technology and time travel and science fiction elements, and very clearly trying to communicate to us that, no, we're not going down the same road that you thought we were going down. And that is something that I think Uematsu is trying to communicate in this piece. And so at the end of the break, what we're going to play is the Final Fantasy IV version of this song. And this is a moment that was really important for video game composers, was the jump to the Super Nintendo. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and what Uematsu was doing to introduce us to what was coming next. And what was coming next was one of the greatest video game soundtracks in the history of the genre. And so we're going to jump on that. Be sure and listen right when we come back for that song, and we'll talk about it in just a little bit. Hey Drum, did you know that the Techno Funk Boy isn't just a group of podcast hosts that live inside a Super Nintendo?
Really?
That's right, we're also a band.
Tell me more.
We're a retro gaming inspired band that plays covers of classic video game themes, original game music, and other music in the style of classic games.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and you can find our first full-length album on iTunes, Amazon, and CD Baby. It's called The Final Fantasy Mixes, and it's an EDM tribute to some of Uematsu's best musical themes. Check the episode notes for links or go to Techno Funk Boy to learn more.
Techno Funk Boy sounds like the greatest band that has ever existed.
I programmed him to say that.
I'm back.
All right, fantastic. Welcome back. So that was the Prelude from Final Fantasy IV. Like I said, they pretty much put this thing in every Final Fantasy game, at least the ones I can think of off the top of my head. But this was the first one that started putting the actual melody in. So in the NES days, what we had was a chord progression. It was a series of 8 chords, played by these arpeggios, and that was it. And so it was kind of like, I guess the equivalent is if like, somebody were just, picking at an acoustic guitar and just, doing some, picking patterns with it and not singing or anything, but it's a cool chord progression. They're moving along with it, and that's what they're doing. It sounds good. There's no melody or anything. It sounds nice. There's nothing wrong with it. But it has no melody. So Final Fantasy IV introduces us to that melody as well as the full string arrangement over what is now shaping out to be a harp sound. And so, if you played the game, actually the harp plays somewhat of a big role in it. And so that's totally appropriate for this to jump to a harp sound. But, the big introduction, of course, is those strings. And this is why this was big, because the NES had basically 4 sound channels. 3 of them you played tone, some sort of tone, processed tone through it, and then the 4th one was for sound effects for the game or percussion. And so Uematsu didn't use much in the way of those sound effects, so he basically had 3 notes to work with in composing these songs. And so arpeggios worked really well with them because he was really only playing 1 note at a time. Okay. But normally, even when I was playing, just little chords a little while ago, I'm playing 4 notes here. And this is about as simple as you can get. And so when you're dealing with something that has 3 notes, you got to be really, really creative in how you make that sound and how you make the song move. The Super Nintendo gave composers a lot more freedom. It gave them more tracks to work with, and it also gave them the ability to play sample sounds to a certain tone. And so what that basically meant was, they recorded a sound, and you can put that recorded sound into the game, and then the sound system told it what pitch to play it at. And so if you just had this sound, Okay. You'd put that in the game, and then the composer would tell the system, it's like, okay, play that in an F, and then an A, and then a B, and then a C. And you could do different things with those tones, and you could custom make your own set of tones. And, that's what Uematsu was doing by Final Fantasy VI, was recording his own library of tone to use in the game. But it gave you the ability to do stuff like strings and stuff. And so I'm saying all this because I want to take you back to this, because when we were jumping from the Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, we'd been reading in Nintendo Power about the graphical upgrades and all the different stuff that it could do. And we saw the demos of like F-Zero and Pilot Wings that were really using the systems, very well with graphics. And it was looking really, really good. But when we started playing these games and heard a lot more than bloops and bleeps in the music, it was a big, big jump. But even then, it's like, I would say the composers were doing great in composing really interesting and good music, but there still wasn't a lot that was absolutely wowing us. Okay. They were composing as though they were composing an NES game. They were just using better tones, better synth sounds, for these games. So when we put in Final Fantasy IV, the effect was very profound, because what we had was that very familiar tune that was done with the harp. And so we had a better sound to that, those arpeggios. It's like, okay, we're not doing bloops anymore. We're doing a harp sound. This is really cool. This is great. And it went all the way through once, and you're like, yes, this is very familiar. This is good. And then all of a sudden that wall of sound hits. Those strings just wash over. And now all of a sudden that chord progression that we've been listening to now for this is the fourth game we're hearing it in, all of a sudden, and I say fourth game very loosely because this is actually the second game we got in America, but, that's a topic for a different time, and y'all have probably heard that one before anyways, but that set of chords that we have been listening to for a very long time, all of a sudden, that's now just the introduction to the song, and that's not even the song anymore. And that is, that is a really, really big deal. And the effect is very profound. And what it's communicating, what Uematsu is communicating as a composer is, first of all, this is bigger than you're expecting. This is more epic than you're expecting. And what he was doing, like when he originally took that fourth and that fifth, and then he shifted into the C minor scale to continue upwards, to continue building the tension. And he's communicating then that we're doing something unexpected. He's renewing that. He's doubling down on it, that, okay, now that shift is expected, but we're going to shift it on you again and make a complete, orchestral piece out of this. And I got to tell you, when I was playing this game originally, it struck me right away, that this was something very profound, that this is something I need to pay attention to. This was definitely not my first Super Nintendo game. It, may have been fifth, but, this is a thing that set it apart from the other ones that I had bought so far, that were using music well, but, using it in a very incidental way, in and for that concept, please go back to our Castlevania episodes where Dan was talking about incidental music. These games were using it in a very incidental way, but this piece was meant to grab your attention from the very beginning. And what you got after that was was an approach to the soundtrack that was much more opera than it was a traditional video game soundtrack, where Uematsu is, and he had been doing this in the NES years. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Uematsu was a pioneer in using leitmotifs and using the soundtrack to tell a story. But what was going to come next was just a full suite of these songs that were sometimes integral into the story, but was definitely helping push the story along. And, to this day, that soundtrack is one of my very, very favorites. That one and Final Fantasy VI, I think, are Uematsu's great masterpieces. And that really starts with this prelude. So, I'm sorry, Drum, what was that? No, I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. Let me unmute you.
So what time do you get off tonight?
Drum, that's not...
Would you like to get a coffee?
Steven, are you hitting on someone? We're in a live Drum, are you able to override him or anything?
Negative. He made sure I did not have that subroutine.
Wait, what happened to all that stuff about, wanting you to be, self-aware and make your own choices?
That's only when you want me to do something.
Oh. Well, actually, yeah, that makes sense. So,
let me give you my number.
Okay. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to put you on mute again. Can you just motion to me what's going on? Oh, okay. We have a caller. Great. Hey, line 1. Yeah, you're on the air with Kai and Kai. How's it going?
Oh, dude, Kai, man, it's good to talk to you again.
It's nice to talk to you too.
Man, how's it been going lately?
I'm sorry, who is this?
Dude, this is Stevie Lee.
Oh yeah, Stevie, man, how's it? Yeah, it is good to talk to you again. What have you been up to? You still rocking it out with the band?
For sure. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
Well, I gotta say, like a couple of weeks ago, I wrote this rockin' song for the band, and I'm listening today, and that's the song I wrote. That's the song, the prelude that you're doing. That's the song. This Novo guy totally stole my song.
Nobuo.
What? I don't know. Whatever. Whoever he is. I don't know. Is he important?
Yeah. He's important. Stevie, man, this song is. I mean, Uematsu wrote this song like a long time ago.
No, man. I wrote it 2 weeks ago.
No, Stevie. He wrote this song like I think it was in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, how hot it was, it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's a little hot for this late in the year.
Not degrees. In the 1980s. Like, he wrote this song like 30 years ago.
Dude, no, that's impossible. Because I wrote this song, and has he been using it for video games? Because I'm gonna have to sue him. I mean, he can't just take my song like that.
Stevie, you're not gonna win that. You didn't write the song then.
Yeah, no, I did. I was like, I was sitting there rocking it out, and it's C, and it's A minor, and it's C, and it's A minor, and then F, and then G, and then A flat, which I have trouble with, but the other guitarist in my band just kind of takes over at that point, and then a B flat, and then it's back. Cause yeah.
No, Stevie, dude, you know, I like you and all, but I gotta tell you, you know, this is one of those things that is. I'm pretty sure that Uematsu wrote this before you were born, and everybody knows it, and you're just not gonna win this one.
Man, no. Well, I tell you what. Do you mind? Let me play it for you, okay? And then you can tell me if maybe it's, you know, maybe it's different enough. His version's different enough that maybe it's just like great minds thinking alike.
I don't think that's what happened.
Well, maybe, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to just accuse him on like radio of stealing from me without giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think that's important.
Okay. All right.
So, like, if I play it, then you can tell, because you're a musician. You can tell me, you and your band there. You can tell me if like this is like. If this maybe it's different and he didn't steal it, he just has similar chords, okay? Or if it is the same and he stole it.
I don't think that's gonna be our judgment on it, but let's do it. Let's do it, Stevie. Come on, let me hear it.
All right, I don't have I have my electric guitar here, but I don't have my pedals set up. So if you just you gotta imagine it's like really distortion. All right, so.
Okay, I will imagine that. All right, let's go ahead. Let's hit it.
Cool, dude. All right, let's go.
What are you doing? Don't play. You're just encouraging him.
I said I mean everyone and won't regret one.
Drum, Morel, you too? Come on, guys. I want to get him off the phone.
You're like a super
Dude, you totally stole that song. All right.
No.
All right. No, we're hanging up on him. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, dude. You totally stole that song, and you need to stop playing it. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today was one of the things that kind of a side effect of what happens when you structure a song like this is that it becomes really good for jazz. And any type of chord progression where you're doing something that is building tension and is unexpected, jazz musicians are just going to light up at that, because in jazz, you want to keep the tension going as long as humanly possible. You don't want it to resolve. And so, in one of the many Final Fantasy arranged albums, there is a tune that is called Prelude, but it's on an album of vocal songs that is called Love Will Grow. It's one of 2 vocal CDs that they arranged from Final Fantasy music. I really like both of them. I think they're, I have a lot of arranged game music. And what I mean by that, for those who aren't familiar, is when you take the game music and you arrange them for orchestra or for Celtic band or something, so that, you're taking the music and then you're applying it to a certain style of music. And so they would take these game soundtracks and they would arrange them in a certain, in a certain style or something, and they would sell it as that. So like there's a Final Fantasy IV arranged album called Celtic Moon, which is arranged as Celtic songs. And they did these 2, arranged for vocals that are both of them are a lot of fun. Pray and Love Will Grow. And both discs have a version of the Prelude, and they're both very different. But one of my favorites, and probably my favorite version of the Prelude, outside of the games and possibly outside of the Techno Funk Boy version, of course, is the one from Love Will Grow, in which they really apply it to a jazz style. So I want to take a little listen to that one too, because I want you to see how, making these kind of key changes, key shifts, putting in these chords and stuff that are not expected really work really well in a jazz setting. And so we're going to take a listen to that.
There is only stars like tears.
All right. And that's it. And I thank you so much for listening. You can find our show notes at technofunkboy.com/13. That's the number 13 as in episode 13. So thank you so much for listening. Look, I feel like we as a gaming community are having some really great conversations lately about retro gaming. And music is one place where we have felt like we can contribute something to that conversation, that maybe people are not, hitting enough, or just perhaps don't feel qualified to talk about. And so we really do want to kind of break down some of these songs into a way that's understandable. We'd love to hear your feedback on it. If you don't like it, we'll probably ignore you, but we will read your comments before we ignore you. So, you should feel good about that. And so do find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can, also, rate and review us on iTunes or your favorite podcast catcher. We do hope that you'll go to the website and take a look at our show notes at technofunkboy.com/13. Sign up for our newsletter there. We have some free music coming out very, very soon. You will be the first to hear about that through our newsletter. So please do sign up. Also, you will find links to most of the music we talk about, and that way you can get a copy for yourself. Thank you again, and we will catch you next week.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Techno Funk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Techno Funk Boy, on Facebook at the Techno Funk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening, keep gaming, and once you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time, then you can game later.